when Keir Starmer stands up there and he says the decision for the Greenlanders is for the Greenlandic people only, do you take that seriously? Do you laugh?
No! How can you take that seriously? The man is a walking joke. What he has done to the British people is absolutely disgraceful. He's putting his own people in prison. Everyone is so concerned about Greenland and their borders, but they're not defending Denmark. They're letting in migrants from all over the place. Our borders aren't important. Our nations aren't important. We're not supposed to have industry. We're not supposed to have military. We can't defend ourselves. We can't keep Russia out for more than a minute up north in Norway, by the way.
These European leaders being quite obnoxious with Donald Trump, you would think that you wouldn't bite the hand that feeds you.
Yeah, well, it just tells me that the United States is not the hand that feeds them.
This year's World Economic Forum was the moment the globalist dream definitively died. Or at least it was the moment our leaders, Keir Starmer, Emmanuel Macron and co, finally realised it. Before Donald Trump arrived in Davos, his Secretary of Commerce told the elites he was now all about the American worker.
Workers come first. We can have policies that impact our workers. Sovereignty is your borders.
He said he wanted Britain to do the same. Rachel Reeves sat next to him, publicly pleaded with him to remember they have allies and that America has benefited from globalisation, scoffing the Americans don't have everything they need.
I was in the States, as you know, last week for a meeting of G7 plus a few other finance ministers to talk around critical minerals. Now, you do have some reserves of critical minerals, but not everything you need. 90% of your critical minerals at the moment come from the US, from China. You need to wean yourself off those.
Sure.
When GB News shared this video, one woman commented saying, "Sorry, I'm American." Is this the woman who cried in the comments? Realising she wasn't getting anywhere, Reeves shapeshifted. She said she coined the term securonomics years ago. She wanted to row back globalisation.
I'm very struck by and taken by the idea of putting your own country first and considering your own security and resilience. I think it's about 3 years ago now that I gave a speech where I coined the term securonomics, which is all about building security and resilience in your economy, and the days when it didn't matter where things were made and who made them were in the past.
Was she trying to out-Trump Trump? She said she wanted to end Britain's reliance on imports. She stopped short of saying she wanted to put the British worker first, though. Now, this is the same Rachel Reeves who is part of a government that is reportedly trying to chain us back to the globalist EU under our noses. The same government that has given Indians preferential tax treatment over Brits in its trade deal. The same government whose attack on farmers was widely criticised for compromising our food security. Under Labour, foreign takeovers of British businesses are up 74% in just 1 year. The truth is, if those running Britain really wanted to fix our economy and prioritise our national interest, they could have. When the British people pioneered this movement with the vote for Brexit, months before the election of Donald Trump. They had the mandate. They've done the opposite. Then, Donald Trump arrived in Davos and trashed the rest of the elite sacred cows: net zero, mass migration, the rules-based international order.
Certain places in Europe are not even recognizable, frankly, anymore. They're not recognizable. And we can argue about it, but there's no argument. And I love Europe, and I want to see Europe go good. But it's not heading in the right direction. I want UK to do great. They're sitting on one of the greatest energy sources in the world, and they don't use it. In fact, their electricity prices have soared 139%.
Whether or not you agree with Donald Trump, the fact he can come to Europe and humiliate its leaders in this way shows just how weak and vulnerable this continent has become. Yet Starmer and co still refuse to confront reality. The PM reckons Trump will think twice when, in his sternest voice, he says Greenland is a matter for the Greenlanders.
Any decision about the future status of Greenland belongs to the people of Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark alone. That right is fundamental, and we support it.
Emmanuel Macron tries to take a stand by refusing to join Trump's Board of Peace. Trump just shrugs, exposes his texts, and tells the media Macron won't be around much longer.
Because, you know, Emmanuel's not going to be there very long. And, you know, there's no longevity there. He's a friend of mine. He's a nice guy. I like Macron. But he's not going to be there very much longer, as you know. And
now, this week has exposed that if there remained any lingering doubt, Europe is completely vulnerable. With a view from the continent where she says Keir Starmer is viewed as a joke, Norwegian journalist Rebecca Mistereggan joins me now. I'm struck this year by the way the World Economic Forum has played out. Usually we see the elites, they arrive in Davos on their private jets and they congratulate themselves on their excellence and they plot what they're going to do to the rest of us for the next year. But this year was a bit different. I mean, the European elites tried to continue as usual, but the Trump administration blew it all out of the water. And I'm wondering, do you think that one day we'll look back on this year as the year the globalist dream definitively ended?
I think maybe that might be earlier, actually. I just think that we're starting to see the effects of it right now. But yeah, definitely is a sort of line in the sand this year. But I see, I don't remember who it was, but it was somebody in the Davos forum who said, I wonder if it was a Danish guy, you can arrest me if I'm wrong, that said that Europe can defend itself without the United States of America. And then 11 minutes later, he said, oh, no, I never said that. And it, to me, between that and the fact that there was a panel talking about the old Europeans, I don't know if you saw that, but between those two, I think these elitist people are still moving in the globalist direction that they have been programmed to move in. But then there's glitches. So they realize that it's not possible. And so it's a very interesting show to watch, actually.
I was struck by that. I mean, my eyes were on our Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, and she was sat with the US Commerce Secretary. And at first, she's tried to lay out, practically begging him to stick by his allies, trying to remind him that America can't do it all alone. But then when he rebuffed her and he said, you know, we're all about the American worker, all of a sudden she rode back, a bit like what you're explaining happened with the Danish guy, and said, actually, a couple of years ago I made a speech and I coined the term securonomics, and I'm all about reshoring processing in Britain. But anyone who's British that watches that thinks that's not the Labour government we know. Foreign takeovers of our companies have gone up 74% in a year. I don't think that that's an example of a government that's worried about, you know, hostile foreign entities, is it?
No, not at all. And that's one side of the coin. And then you have the other side of the coin, which is policies that is killing the industry and making it impossible to run businesses. I don't know how it is in the UK at the moment, but our Labour government has made it so that it's really difficult to start your own business and have that be to earn something from it because, you know, starting a business is hard work. You have to work all the time. It takes time before you start earning. But they've made it so that they tax you to death before you even start earning. So they're kind of like killing off small businesses. And then foreign people come in and buy up, like you say, businesses, infrastructure, other things that are important to our nations. And then, you know, I don't know how that's putting your nation citizens first, but...
Well, they're just not things that are going to make us stronger and able to compete. I mean, if you've got these European leaders being quite obnoxious with Donald Trump, you would think that you wouldn't bite the hand that feeds you.
Yeah, well, it just tells me that the United States is not the hand that feeds them, right? It must be something else because they're fighting the U.S. really hard right now. And at one point, I was between the whole Greenland thing and then, you know, you have Iran on the other side, Trump talking about going into Iran. And then you have the mainstream media and masses in Europe thinking that there's going to be a war on Greenland, sending soldiers there. When was the last time you had a war on the West and the East End? Like, historians will realize that that's World War II, right? And I find that interesting because Trump said during his speech today, I think, that America should have never given Greenland back to Denmark. And this follows the hypocrisy even further. Because you have a country that is defending Greenland and the borders of Greenland and the ownership to Greenland with everything that they have, but they're not defending Denmark. They're letting in migrants from all over the place, and people are dissatisfied. Same with all of Europe. We're giving away our hard-earned taxpayer money. We're giving away social benefits. We're giving away our space. We're giving away our businesses. And let's not forget, I don't know how much they talk about this in Davos this year, Nick. Maybe you have seen anything about it, but the climate crisis, where they have imposed policies which is killing industry to launder money through whatever they're laundering it through, filling their pockets, while we suffer high energy costs and all sorts of things.
But usually
extra cost, extra tax.
I used to think maybe, there's an idea, there's a plan that maybe they're not articulating properly to us, they're not able to bring us along. But usually it's in an elite's interest to be in control of a strong nation, wealthy nation. Otherwise, how do you have any influence? And so part of me is like, do they deliberately try and weaken, or are they just deluded? Do they think they're more powerful than they are? Do they really believe that the green revolution is going to swift us into becoming a green energy superpower that they try and say that Europe's going to be? When every bit of evidence before your eyes is showing that Europe has become completely uncompetitive, and now that we're starting to fall out with Donald Trump, we're completely undefendable, and we're really, really vulnerable.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so interesting, right? Because if you look at policy and you look at what Donald Trump has done that Europe is not doing, it has a lot to do with his climate policies, right? Oil and business and, and besides from like the border stuff and all the other things that he's doing, putting his nation first, putting his business in his nation first and the citizen first. And so Europe don't want to follow that. They still want to live in this la-la land of climate crisis and quotas and extra taxes and putting on a show of green industry, green steel industry. What would you buy green steel when it's exactly the same as some other steel, but maybe 3 times more expensive? No, you wouldn't. How much would that make an apartment cost? Well, we can imagine, can we not? Just look at the food prices, look at the living cost that we have in Europe today. That is a direct effect of energy costs. And what has made our energy expensive? Well, it is European policy. You can blame Russia and you can blame Ukraine and you can blame everybody however much you want. But the fact of the matter is that climate policies are making our living extremely expensive, and we are not competitive anymore. Trump did the exact opposite, and I think that's the fundament of the conflict.
I think he really meant it when he said he wants Europe to be strong, he wants the UK to be strong, and I'm sure by extension he means the same for Norway. And I think in a way what he's trying to do is highlight to the Europeans that if this person who's guaranteeing your security either fails or turns against you, you're completely open, you're completely vulnerable. And I think he's trying to scare them into increasing their military spend, into taking things seriously and, maybe cutting back on the welfare spending so that we can be lean again. But the message is falling on deaf ears.
Well, he did say this in his last presidential term, right? He encouraged all the NATO countries to raise the budget for what they spend on NATO, right? I don't remember how many percentage point it was that he was asking, but he said that the United States would not carry the NATO costs or the majority alone anymore. And if you look at Europe and if you look at all the NATO nations, we built down our military, our defense, and then we don't really spend that much because we just rely on the United States to come to our aid whenever that's necessary, right? And that's not the case anymore. And so, yeah, they didn't listen. I don't know how many of the countries actually met his qualification that he put forth in his previous presidential term, but I'm sure it didn't come anywhere near that. So with him doing this, it might, pressure the countries into doing something. But at the same time, on the other side of this, you have this loose cannon called Macron that really dreams of a European military. And I can't even begin to speak about why I think that's a bad idea, but you can imagine.
Well, I mean, it'd be completely dominated by the French. It's quite funny because I think Macron constantly denounces the US for its imperialist attitude, but
Right.
the EU is a French imperialist project, really. I mean, you spoke to me when we spoke last time. You said that Norway was just becoming a resource colony for the EU.
Yeah. That's how I feel. We have nothing. We're supposed to be living off cutting each other's hair and I don't know, love or something like that, and kumbaya. And then we have oil that the state is making itself rich on, not us, but the actual state. And then we're not supposed to be having small businesses or medium businesses, and they're doing whatever they can to kill that off. I don't know if you saw the whole there was a huge conflict with the salmon industry because they tried to tax them to death as well, this Labour government. So they've done an effort to make sure that, you know, any private owned businesses aren't really going that well.
And you are obviously Norwegian. That's an Arctic country.
Yeah.
To try and verify some of what Donald Trump's saying, I mean, is the Norwegian government concerned about rising tensions in the Arctic? Are you starting to prepare at all?
Yeah, well, there have been messaging as such, but then again, our politicians are very much virtue signalers, so I don't know if they mean it or not. It's hard to tell.
And how has the reaction been in Norway? I mean, you've been in the headlines because Donald Trump's not happy about the Nobel Peace Prize. He's exposed his texts with your Prime Minister. How's that gone down there? And also to do with the Greenland saga as well. I mean, you're very close to the Danes, Scandinavian. How's that gone down there?
So there is a divide. I mean, in terms of people, some people think that giving Greenland to the United States is a good idea, and some people don't. So I think it's very much like most places. In terms of our politicians and our government, they are not happy about the situation. They are 100% behind the Danish monarchy, as they say, which I find kind of funny. Like I said earlier in this program, that, you know, everyone is so concerned about Greenland and their borders, and the Babylon Bee made a really, really funny and very accurate meme about this. They dressed Trump up as a Muslim and put the headline, Trump dresses up as Muslims so they will let him invade Greenland. And that's kind of how it is, right? Because Denmark's borders are not that important, but Greenland is. So what is this pawn in the geopolitical game here is what I'm questioning. And I don't know. They seem very flustered about this. And it just adds fuel to Trump is Hitler, Trump is imperialistic, Trump is this, Trump is that. And there's already a massive Trump hatred in Norway to begin with. So
it does seem a little bit like the Europeans are just saying, you can't do this, you're not allowed. But they don't realise that you've got to have something to back it up. And, I mean, there has been this announcement that Donald Trump is kind of close to making a deal on Greenland. And we don't have all the details yet, but from what we've heard, it seems like Denmark is going to allow the US to set up more bases there. And the bases it has will be classed as sovereign US territory. And then they will also be allowed to mine for minerals in the areas surrounding. So it sounds to me like Donald Trump has been given everything he wants with none of the responsibility for the Greenlandic people. And so therefore, Denmark has lost all the benefits of owning Greenland, but still has to pay all the benefits that it pays out to the Greenlanders.
Make that make sense, please.
And the only thing I can think of why they would even bother to keep the territory is because they're deluded. And they think that we still want to hold on. We still want to be this great Europe that has territories all over the world. We still this great power. And when we have this joined up military with France, we'll really be able to project that power. But I would say that if you were to reconcile yourself with where your power truly is, you would probably say, do you know what? We can't defend Greenland. We've just shown that with what's going on with the US. And we don't want the cost of it if we can't have the benefits, which is the materials. So wouldn't it actually be a pragmatic thing to do to just hand it over to Trump?
I would say yes. I know that's not the right answer for a lot of people, but I would say yes. And I say so because Europe has put itself in the position where they cannot defend their own countries and not other territories either. If Trump wanted to take the Faroe Islands, he could do that as well. You know, I think it's very, it shows how deep rooted the hypocrisy in the elitists are when talking about Greenland and you're talking about Europe, or the old Europeans, as they now say. Because our borders aren't important, our nations aren't important, we're not supposed to have industry, we're not supposed to have military, we can't defend ourselves. We can't keep Russia out for more than a minute up north in Norway, by the way. And here we are, egging on the United States of America, which is our closest ally, which I think is absolutely ridiculous, especially when we have funded a war in Ukraine. Yes, Russia is there, and aren't supposed to, they attacked. Yes, you are correct. But regardless, Norway has put itself in a position where we have soured a relationship that we had with Russia, which was pretty good, or at least livable. We share border. We have a business that goes across that border. There's a lot of Russians up north. And that relationship is absolutely devastated by that war. And then we've been told, and I don't know, Sweden had this pamphlets as well coming and going in their mailboxes. Prepare for war, prepare food storage, prepare this, prepare. They don't say war, but that's what they're inclining by putting this in your mailbox. And they're all talking about Russia all over the place, all the time, in all the media, 24 hours a day. And then all of a sudden, when Trump starts to talk about Greenland, we want a war there as well. We're going to send soldiers to Greenland. Like, how are you going to fight off Russia on one end and then the United States of America on the other? Like, who thought that was a good idea? So I don't know. I think also they're deluded. I don't know what they're thinking, or if there's some sort of pawn in the geopolitical specter here behind closed doors that we're not aware of. I don't know. It seems like a lot of political theater to me, or at least propaganda, but how can we be sure?
And years ago, with a threat like this, and, you know, as you say, worsening relations with Russia, and now, you know, mistrust of the United States, you might look to Britain and France. And I want to... Now, in the UK, our Prime Minister's very unpopular. Emmanuel Macron is very unpopular here. He is seen as the person who tried to stymie our country during the Brexit negotiations. How is Britain now viewed? How far have we fallen in the eyes of other countries?
You're ridiculous at this point. I'm sorry, Nick. I don't even know. I don't know. I don't cry anymore. I just laugh. The whole banning people for speaking their mind while letting rapists roam in small villages. I don't know. That's one side of it. And then the whole putting people for speaking the truth on social media in prison for speaking the truth on social media. And now I just want to call it Bikini Gate. Bikini Gate was a thing. Like, it just, when you think it's
What's Bikini Gate?
Bottom, it gets worse.
What's Bikini Gate?
The whole banning of X, because you can make bikini, I just call it Bikini Gate because it's ridiculous.
And you don't. So no one believes when Keir Starmer stands up there and he says the decision for the Greenlanders is for the Greenlandic people only. Do you take that seriously? Do you laugh?
No. How can you take that seriously? The man is a walking joke. What he has done to the British people is absolutely disgraceful. He's putting his own people in prison for exercising freedom of speech. He is protecting rapists when he is not transparent about the grooming gangs. He is trying to ban the only free speech platform that is available to people at this time. He is trying to make sure that they cannot view the revolution in Iran, for example, that is happening right now. And why is that? Because I think the UK actually, in terms of measurement, Nick, if you look at how many people have been arrested for merely speaking, that the UK is worse than Russia. It is worse than other authoritarian states in terms of statistics of that. Now, we cannot trust all stats coming out of authoritarian states, obviously, so take that with a grain of salt. But regardless, how can you take a man seriously that is banning Eva Vlardingerbrook from entering the United Kingdom while boats arrive every single day with men, young men in fighting age into the United Kingdom and then pay for all their accommodation and everything? And so we have a saying here in Norway where we sew pillows under their arms, because that's what your guys are doing. You're making life very comfortable for them while punishing people who actually makes an effort. How do you take that seriously?
I mean, sometimes it does feel like, I mean, they're coming up with this new law at the moment of this Islamophobia definition, and now that it's become politically toxic, they're trying to call it the anti-Muslim hostility law, which actually could be even worse, because...
That is worse. Am I not allowed to have hostile feelings against Islam?
Well, this is the problem, is that they make it about... They say it's about Muslims, but we've seen in our courts that a lot of the time they conflate Muslims and Islam. And I think it could become much more about hostility to the ideas of Islam. But, of course, the majority of the people in this country are and always have been Christian, and they, by nature of that, would be hostile to the ideas of Islam. And it was almost like they're saying, let's import this group of ideas that you don't like, and we're going to make it illegal for you to react.
Mm-hmm. So we had that happen here as well. We had a report talking about Muslim hostility, actually. That wording, that exact wording. It is not a coincidence that they're changing it to that. That has been said in some sort of group meeting between the demagogues of the European Union at some point, and it just like tickles and spreads throughout the member states and other European nations. I think, anyway, because it cannot be a coincidence that hostility towards Islam is now a thing.
No.
No.
But again, it's all... If you really believe that there was a war on the horizon, you would be trying to strengthen your nation. You would be thinking, we've got an obesity crisis, we've got a mental health crisis, we've got a tanking economy, we don't build anything, we've got no steel anymore, we
don't have any meds anymore.
We're allowing all of our companies to be taken over. We've got a Chinese mega embassy being built on top of vital cables in central London. And we're giving away one of our most prized air bases to the Mauritians. So how can you at the same time say we need to get ready for war with Russia while you're doing lots of different things that are weakening us? And it's not just the UK, is it? It's happening all over Europe.
Yes, it is. And it's a really fair point that you're making, and I've made it as well in the past, when the propaganda towards war with Russia was really pumping. If that was the case, why have we not increased our military, and why are we not building? Why are we closing down bases, military bases, and focusing on hiring gender advisors in the military rather than fighting forces? So I think it's very see-through. And do they want a war? Seems like they do to me, but will we have one? I'm not so sure.
What do you think, Donald? Do you think Donald Trump will get Greenland in the end?
I think Donald Trump gets what he wants usually. Is that a good thing? I don't know. I'm not going to say it's a good thing, because we don't know who's going to be running America after Trump, when his period ends. We don't know who's going to be in charge. Would you have given Greenland to America if it was Biden that sat as president? I don't think so. I wouldn't want that. So is it a good idea? I don't know. But
We've
I think at least he can scare Europe into doing, like you said, something about their resilience and their position in defending themselves.
One thing that I think many of my viewers will be worried about is that what we've seen from Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron is they seem to be completely in tandem with each other on foreign policy. And you know, British prime ministers usually are in total agreement with the US on foreign policy. We're in hock to them. And now we're starting to see Donald Trump's come up with this idea of a board of peace, which Emmanuel Macron straight away said we're not joining. We're now seeing reports that Keir Starmer, which is shocking for a British prime minister, is saying that he won't. And I wonder, you have your own anti-European movement in your country, and I wonder if they're now going to start trying to use the rupture with Donald Trump as a reason to get us back into the EU.
Oh yeah. They are already doing that. Yeah.
Do you think you'll see
No,
that in
it's
Norway?
more important than ever to join the European Union. Yeah, that's what they say.
They say it in Norway as well then?
Yeah.
Wow. And what, for defence?
Oh, for everything. For trading, for defense, for strong leadership, blah blah blah. You know the gist. So yeah, they're using every occasion they can to make an argument that it's important for us to join the European Union, and it's the same thing they did when our banks are selling off a lot of Norwegian currency. Our currency is really in the drain at the moment. Our inflation is really high, and instead of doing something about it, stop selling so many kroners that it drops, and actually strengthen and investing in our own nation, so that because who's going to believe in your country if your own politicians don't believe and want to invest there? Nobody else is going to do it, are they? Instead of doing that, they're like, well, maybe we should join the European Union because then we can have euros. No. It's a poor attempt to try to convince people that we need to be in the European Union. And in my opinion, the fire has just begun in the European Union, and that house is going to burn down, and I don't want to be a part of it.
And how do they see it in Denmark and Sweden? Is there a significant move to leave the EU there, or are they kind of completely under the spell?
Not to my knowledge, but then again, I haven't really investigated any opposing organizations or anything like that in Sweden or Denmark. I think there's just an acceptance that they're in there, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And watching the conference over the last couple of days, I mean, it's not done yet. Is there anything that's kind of stuck out to you that you thought you might want to bring up or talk about?
I mean, I think it's interesting that I think Trump is interesting because I think last year he was so direct. Last time he was so direct, and then now he's going a bit back and forth. Like it seems like we're at a point in time right now where the direction of the policies can go either way, if that makes sense. I feel like everybody's a little bit all over the place. There's desperation, there's unknowns, and the world is a little bit shaky at the moment. So I think that is one thing that I'm looking at as a takeaway from this year's Davos meeting. But also I think that they're much more, in their desperation, transparent about what they're doing. Not only because the previous years they have been dehumanizing the normal people, trying to convince us that we need to eat bugs, and how disgusting is that, by the way? And making sure that we have green circular economy, also known as socialist economy. But now it's more like all the things that they have denied that they've done, even though they've said it open, they kind of backtracking a little bit. So they're talking, like I said, they're talking about the old Europeans. Well, what is that? What is an old European? So they're kind of giving away the fact that they know that mass migration has changed Europe. It's changed the demographics of Europe. It's changed the culture of Europe. I think that is a huge takeaway, Nick. I think that is something that needs to be dug into even more moving forward in this year, because they know what they're doing, and now they're saying it without saying it. It's not like the previous years where they have said it stuff plainly and then gaslit you into believing otherwise, or that it's good for you or something. Now it's just, they're so desperate that it comes out and then it kind of just festers there. So they know that we know that they know, you know? And I think we're in for a crazy ride moving forward.
To me, it felt a little bit like Donald Trump and his administration had come, and it was almost like he was saying, you need to get your stuff together, and it was almost like a goodbye. It was like America's not, we're going to step out a little bit now. We're going to leave you to your own devices. That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah, and who would be surprised, really? Why are they going to come to our aid when we can't even take care of ourselves? We're not taking care of ourselves, Nick. Like I said, we're ruining our nations in every way possible, with every policy possible, that being business, money, demographics, future, defense, whatever it is, it's all been built down and is sort of broken down in every single way. And we're in the rubbles. People are just not seeing it yet.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Rebecca. I think there's examples every single day in Europe of what we've talked about today. And I think it's important that we keep touching on these issues and we highlight what's going on in different countries, because I think a lot of the time when I read the comments from our viewers at GB News, they think that we're the only country that's doing all of these stuff. And then we speak to people like you and other foreign journalists, and we realise that in Europe they're working together, and I don't know whether it's deliberate or not, but their policies are leading to the destruction of our civilization.
Very much are, and they are working together. We know that, and we know that a lot of the media scene is also working together under the trusted news initiatives and these European initiatives. And if you don't remember, keep in mind that Europe tried to centralize truth and journalism through a few of their policies. I think not even last year, it's a couple of years ago. And then, of course, all of these other censorship laws and making privacy illegal or de facto illegal last year, that they can go through your texts and everything like this, and Democratic Shield and Digital Service Acts and all of this. So I think, you see them at these GOP meetings and Davos meetings, and of course they're exchanging and planning and working together. And the Union is also has a huge influence on every European nation, I would say. So if it wasn't for X, we would not know a lot of these things. That, like you said, we think we're alone in this. We think our leadership is alone in this. And I think a lot of Norwegians felt that way as well. And if now when you look to Finland, or you look to Austria, or you look to Germany, or whoever you're looking at, and you look at the people and what they're writing and what they're reporting, it's very different to the polished scene that you get served by the big media houses. So even more important to keep X, I think, and so fight Starmer on it with claws and teeth, because you're going to need it.
Well, I'll end it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.